Well, historians expressing growing concern that the sale of stolen art from the Middle East may be funding terror attacks. An editorial in the Wall Street Journal saying in part, quote, both Islamic State fighters and those fleeing them provide channels to bring stolen material directly to Brussels, just one place. You can see pictures showing just how much looting has happened at some of the Middle East's most prominent museums and landmarks. Some experts say European law enforcement has a lax approach to art trafficking, and that's also part of the problem. Here to examine this issue, Deborah Lair, chairman of the Antiquities Coalition, a D.C.-based group that fights cultural racketeering, and Tess Davis, the executive director of the Antiquities Coalition, both of them writing that Wall Street Journal piece that caught our attention. Because, Deborah, you think about this, it almost sounds like out of a movie. Someone, trading an antique vase of some sort that has these pathways that you don't even understand. You say that these objects are actually finding their way even to the United States.
That's right. It really is a global problem. And as you said, looting has been taking place ever since there was buried treasure. But ISIS has really taken it to a whole new degree. It's almost systematic, and in their sense, they view it as almost an extraction industry, like oil. And they're taking advantage of Westerners' interest in buying a lot of this art to help them fund their causes.
Tess, what kind of art are we talking about?
Well, what we're talking about here is the cradle of civilization, sites that have survived not just for centuries but millennia and have been protected by people in the region for millennia.
Look at this picture. Actually, if we could go back, I'm sorry, our director is helping us here with our different pictures, but I just saw all these pots on the screen. And I think that's what we might envision. Okay, it's going to be a vase of some sort or something like that. Deborah, what specific objects have you seen traded in this way?
Well, it's a whole variety of things. We first started to become aware of this on this level after the Arab Spring in Egypt, when we started hearing there was mass looting going on. And we found a whole range of Quranic and Islamic art that's showing up across the world, quite honestly. These photos that you're showing came from a group that does tremendous work in Syria, tracking down looted art, where, as I said, ISIS is actually encouraging people to go out and loot. They've created their own Ministry of Antiquities in the Ministry of Extraction, where they also do the oil and others, just to encourage people to loot, because they raise money not only from the sale, but from the taxation of it.
How much are we talking about as far as money? How much are they selling these items for, Tess?
Well, the U.S. government has estimated that since mid-2014 that ISIS alone, and again, they're not the only group looting and trafficking in the area, have earned an estimated several $1 million from this. And when you see how much ISIS has been able to do with so little, with so few people, with so few arms, this is money to accomplish a great deal.
So, Deborah, describe us the path then. How does one object get from Syria to, let's say, Brussels and then sold?
Right. So it depends where they're coming out of, but there are a number of transshipment points. In the case of ISIS, a number of the transshipment points are through Turkey and through Lebanon. There they are consolidated, and they're moved out through markets and with dealers who are willing to traffic in these illicit antiquities. And then they make their way to markets like ours, which is one of the largest antiquities markets in the world.
So how would one know then if they're purchasing something that came out of Syria through ISIS?
Well, buyers need to look very carefully at the provenance, the ownership history of a piece, and be especially suspicious of pieces that are coming from the Middle Eastern region today. It's really a situation of buyer beware.
So, and at this point, is it safe to assume if something's coming out of Syria, Deborah, that it could be coming from ISIS?
Well, it's the safest just not to buy any conflict antiquities at the moment. It's not to say that there isn't a legitimate trade in a number of these, but you want to make sure that most definitely it's done before the crisis started, but also before 1970, when there's an international convention governing the trade in this. For the U.S. government, we've recently taken action and passed a law to ban the import of Syrian antiquities. Why we wrote this op-ed is because as we started doing our research on what other countries are doing, most are moving in the direction to crack down on the trade in illicit antiquities, but Belgium, ironically, was not.
So how do we fix the problem then in Europe, and would that actually solve it?
Well, it's a long way to solve it. I mean, it's like any illicit trade. It's very difficult. But there are definitely steps that governments can take. First, raising awareness on the importance of not buying these conflict antiquities. And two, for the governments to take action. For example, Belgium had eliminated their art squad. Really, we need to see an increase in law enforcement. And most important, when Belgium is going through all the activities that they're doing to stop these homegrown terrorists who are coming out of Belgium, which it's you know, they've been the ones involved in Paris and others. There's an issue. Just including antiquities as part of what they're cracking down on is really important.
It's a fascinating look at something that we don't talk enough about. Deborah and Tess, great to have you both.
Great.
Thank you very much.